It's true that in the little obituary that I wrote of Derek, I described him as saintly or almost saintly. And I think that's entirely accurate. There are many reasons why I think he was a saintly character. One is that he was, this is going to be a peculiar word, often I think applied to the deity. He was omnibenevolent in the sense that he wished everybody well. There was nothing, it was no hostility in Derek to anyone. There was just no one, even the people who attacked his views and even the people who attacked his work in a polemical way, people who said unkind things, uncharitable things about his work. He never had any animosity whatsoever to those people, no resentment, no hostility. It puzzled him. He would be baffled. He would think, I wonder why so-and-so. And then he might think of an explanation. But he never reciprocated the hostility, ever. I never heard him, I've said this many times, I've never heard Derek say an unkind word about anybody. I mean, he could recognize faults and he could recognize when people were acting wrongly and so on, but I just never heard him express hatred, anger, animosity towards anyone. He wasn't that kind of person. That's part of what I mean by saying he was saintly. He was also extraordinarily generous. He would make sacrifices for people. Janet, his wife, might disagree with me in that the one thing he did protect for, but again, I wouldn't even say that it was selfish reasons. It may have been more impersonal reasons. He did protect his time. He spent most of his time working on his philosophy. And so in some sense, he denied himself to others as a resource. But when he felt that he was needed, he would always do what he thought he ought to do. He was extremely generous in helping people with their philosophy. I benefited enormously from that. He was extraordinarily generous to me in giving me his time and discussing my work when I was a graduate student and subsequently. And he's legendary for that in the field of philosophy. He, as far as I know, just never asked anything of anyone. He lived very simply. He lived a very monkish life. When he would teach at Rutgers, when I taught there, he would stay at my house, and I have lived in his house here off and on when I visited Oxford and even after I moved to Oxford. So I've witnessed how he lives. We've lived sort of side by side. And he spends no money on himself. He gives money to charities, or he saves it up he's been saving it up to give to charity after he died. But like I say, he really had no indulgences. He spent no money on himself. He did earlier. The one thing he spent money on was his photography. That was his other creative endeavor, and he spent a lot of money on that. But otherwise, he just didn't have material needs. He lived incredibly simply. That kind of simple ascetic life where the resources that one has but doesn't use are then either given to or intended to be given to the poor. That was a characteristic of Derek's way of living. But it was his complete lack of hostility ever to anyone that I think is also saintly. So not only this extraordinary generosity, but also the complete lack of ill will towards anyone. So there's Derek the great genius, but there's also Derek the saint, there's Derek the eccentric, there's Derek the recluse, all of that. I mean, he's a fascinating character with a huge influence within philosophy, but never sought celebrity or fame, at least not fame while he was alive. I think it was important to him that his ideas should have an influence, that what he was doing was important, and that he would be remembered as the source of these important ideas. But his real goal was to get to the truth, to find the truth about the things that he thought were important. And he just gave himself wholly and utterly to that. And he never did anything that would make him famous or well-known or anything of the sort. He just brushed all that aside and went single-mindedly after his work. I think of Derek as selfless, largely egoless, just fanatically committed to discovering the truth about things that really matter. He deliberately did not seek celebrity. He just wanted to get to the truth and get on with his work.